So Jin Kazama made his debut in Tekken 3, which came out in 1997 or 1998. I think the arcade version came out in 97. I think the PS1 version came out in 98. But anyways, Jin Kazama's been around since late 90s, and he's been one of the most popular characters in the entire franchise. And obviously, he was like the main protagonist of Tekken 3. And then in Tekken 4, it seemed like he kind of like isolated himself from everyone following the tragedy involving his mother Jun Kazama and the everything with Ogre and Hiachi Mishima. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, you can watch Tekken Bloodline. It pretty much it glosses over that. It pretty much explains that more in depth. But yeah, I mean, Jin Kazama was a big deal back in the day, especially in the 90s. He was one of the coolest characters in the entire franchise. And I felt like at that point, the series had a central protagonist because prior to that, I think Hihachi Mishima was supposed to be like the protagonist, but at the same time, he was a reoccurring antagonist because he pretty much made Kazuya what he is, and Kazuya is pretty much the main antagonist of the Tekken series. And a lot of people remember how cool Jin Kazama was back in the day. And you look at him now, it seems like, I don't know, he's not nearly as popular or cool as he was back in the day. And the reason I say that is because I feel like in some ways the the Tekken series kind of ruined Jin Kazama because I feel like I don't know. I feel like with Tekken 6, I mean, that was like the beginning of the end for Jin Kazama in terms of, I guess, his popularity. And the reason I say that is because like his character change was so drastic to a point where A, it didn't make any sense. B, it was kind of a turnoff because it was very different from what people expected or what they were like used to seeing from Jin Kazama because I don't know, like in Tekken 5, he pretty much inherited Mashima Zabitsu, and then in Tekken 6, he's basically a warlord. He makes enemies with just about everyone, and I don't know. He just came off as like edgy and somewhat emo to a point where I don't know. It felt like a puzzling departure from the character that was portrayed in Tekken 3. And and I don't know, after just like knowing the things that Hihachi has did, all the bad things he did, and knowing all the stuff that Kazuya did, it's kind of hard to see him in the same light. I mean, he did some horrible things, but he's not nearly as bad as Kazuya. You know what I mean? And then in Tekken 7, he was like more of a supporting character opposed to being like a main antagonist or a main protagonist or anything like that. And then we have Tekken 8 where he's like the main protagonist again, except this time, he's back with his mother, Jun Kazama, and you find out, oh, she wasn't really dead at all. And I guess, she's going to help him defeat Kazuya or whatever. But obviously, Kazuya doesn't die in the canon ending of Tekken 8. And obviously, Jun still has feelings for Kazuya despite all the stuff he's done in the past. But I feel like with Tekken 8, it seems like Jin has somewhat of an identity crisis because it's like as a as a fan of the Tekken series or as a casual who's been like following, Tekken for decades or what have you, it's you don't know what to make of this, It's like, am I supposed to have sympathy for Jin Kazama because I guess Tekken 8 was like the beginning of his redemption arc or what have you, despite all the horrible things that he did in Tekken 6? Or, or is, Jin Kazama, not the same character as he once was? I mean, is he? Because I mean, obviously, back in the day with him and the Devil Gene, and him basically being able to control all that, and it doesn't feel the same like in Tekken 8. I mean, everything is different. I feel like them changing like his gameplay and all that stuff in Tekken 8 is something that was kind of a turnoff to a lot of people. His character change, along with I guess along with just, they're going with, Jin versus Kazuya, and, I just feel like the whole thing was just anticlimactic because obviously we knew Jin was gonna win the fight or what have you, but, for the most part, it took so long to, like, really get to that point of just, that alleged, final showdown or what have you. And it's probably not going to be the final showdown or what have you. But obviously, Kazuya's daughter Reina is obviously going to be, in the mix in the future when we get Tekken 9, probably about a decade from now. She's probably going to play like a major role in that game. But yeah, I feel like the whole like bloodline saga is going to continue. I don't think it's ever truly going to end because I think Bandai Namco is smart enough to know that if they kill off like Jin or Kazuya or Hihachi, people are going to stop, giving a damn about, Tekken altogether because I don't know. I mean, you can't kill off Hihachi. He's been around since the beginning. Kazuya's been around since the beginning. And like, who'd you get to fill in that void as the main antagonist? Like, if you kill off Kazuya or you kill off Hihachi Mishima, who's going to fill that void? And back with like Tekken 6, you got the feeling that, maybe Hihachi might get killed off, or if, Kazuya got killed off and Jin remained the main villain, you could have someone, rise up and take out Jin, but obviously that's not going to happen because you look at Tekken 6 and you look at who the main protagonist was. I believe it was Lars Alex Anderson. Honestly, like no one cares about him. People have forgotten about him already. And I feel like they gave him Alyssa, Boskanovich as a side chick to, I guess, make you interested in them because let's be real. I mean, Lars compared to Jin Kazama was just boring. No charisma. He looked like a bum. And I don't know, he had no personality whatsoever. He was just boring. No one like he was like an afterthought by the time we got to like Tekken 7 for the most part. They didn't even bother making him the main character because they know that he was a failure as a main protagonist in Tekken 6. So I feel like in Tekken 7, even though they didn't really have a central main character, people would go on record and say that maybe Hihachi was probably like the central character because let's be real, he's no hero. He's actually a scumbag, but obviously he's like one of the most recognizable figures in the entire franchise. So yeah, I do feel like, turning Jin evil in Tekken 6 was a mistake. And I feel like it's one of those things that Bandai Namco did everything they could to try and recover from in Tekken 8. But, despite how people feel about it personally, it was still a pretty good game. It was, Tekken 8 was the best game of, or the best fighting game of 2024. And, I don't know. It's debatable whether or not that game was better than Street Fighter 6. Some people say Street Fighter 6 was slightly better, but I feel like the fact that, the Tekken series has been going on as long as it have, and people are still interested in the story and the whole bloodline feud with Jin and Kazuya and Hihachi and the rest of the rest of the family is crazy. And it shows that obviously the storyline for Tekken is still an attraction. The whole Iron Fist tournament concept is something that a lot of old school gamers are like fans of, and it's something that's still an attraction this day and age. I feel like the Tekken series is one of the few things that can rival like Street Fighters in terms of like characters, and storylines, and storytelling, and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I do feel like Jin for the most part still trying to recover from the way he was used in Tekken 6. And I don't know, at least they got something for him. I feel like, bringing Judd back was designed to help, players, get interested in the game and to get interested in Jin once again. And to some extent it works, but yeah, I feel like everything that happened in Tekken 6 really did not need to happen. I feel like it's done more harm than good to Jin's character, but I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see where this redemption arc goes. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll get new characters within the within the bloodline that's going to be introduced in the next game, but it's going to be a very long time until we get like a Tekken 9, probably like around the time like PlayStation 6 comes out, which is going to be years from now.